Welcome to the TrueNAS 25.10 Goldeye highlight release here. I'm excited it's live, and I brought someone from TrueNAS, from Chris. How you doing, Chris?
Hey, Tom, not too bad. I was gonna say, you called it Goldeneye right out of the gate, man. We're dueling in
I did.
factory.
I did. I
We're dueling in
tried.
factory again.
I know. I'm good. I'm just ready to play the N64 game again. We're all it's
We're
in
showing our age here already.
we're
It's in
showing
our
our
DNA.
age, but nonetheless, Goldeye is released for keeping with the fish names. So
Yep.
I guess this is a popular fish in Canada. Someone told me. I did not know that. Is that true?
The Goldeye. I don't know about that. We got a lot of salmon, whitefish, things like that up here.
Okay.
I don't know.
But
Might
it's
be
a popular release at least. So we
for
that's what we're
sure.
here to talk about is some of the new features on there. And we're going to at least bring this up a little bit. First, I want to bring up the fact that there's a podcast. And we're going to reference this podcast a couple times because instead of rehashing things, did you know that TrueNAS had their own podcast? And so this is the TrueNAS Tech Talk T3 podcast. I want to push it to people to let them know if you want to hear from the developers, because sometimes people ask me as if I know something. I'm like, you know what? There's a couple guys that got a podcast and they talk about it, and I've referenced this a couple times. So, and you have another episode that's going to be released soon to address a topic that we can touch on briefly, but it's the smart's not real smart sometimes, believe it or not. So there's going to be a discussion. Is it the next episode coming out about this?
Yeah, it just finished rendering. We're going to be having it uploaded pretty much as soon as the live stream's done here. Don't want to steal from your viewership, of course. We're going to upload that, and people can jump right over there right away and see what Chris and I have to say about 2510 itself and some of those, like I said, spirited and vivid discussions about some of the changes we made in 2510. Certainly.
Yeah, and I think this is, to me, it's just awesome, and this is part of open source, and part of what makes me smile about it, because you see this a lot more in the open source community, is the fact that the people making the decisions are using the socials to be public, to talk about it. I mean, you can always join a mailing list, you can always join the forums, you can go through the bug reports, but it's cool to see you guys walking through some of the decisions, use cases, taking viewer questions as well, to just discuss how the sausage is made and what goes into it, because it's not like these are just arbitrary, you're bored, let's make the community upset because we want to make a change. There's real thought that goes into these changes that come out.
Yeah, 100%. Like we said, we're making this choice for a reason. It's not just because we said, hey, let's upset people and remove smart, because we haven't removed smart. It's still there. Smart is still in the background. We talk about it more on the podcast, but there are definitely reasons why you can't just trust that pass fail system of there as well.
Yep. And that's what I'm excited, because I'm not listened to the episode yet. I just have inside information that the episode will discuss this topic. So I will be listening to it once it's published as well. It's just like all of you that are on here. So be sure to check that out and look for the TrueNAS Tech Talk T3 podcast. But let's talk about Goldeneye. And this is a cool release. It's gone smooth. I was an early adopter, early tester. Matter of fact, I think that's something I want to point out really quick, because this is, to me, a cool feature going forward. Once you've moved to the 2510 version, you get this profile update. Let's talk about this.
So this is one thing that people are probably going to be really happy about. Previously, when you went into the update system, you were picking like the train of TrueNAS, and you had to look at the different releases there, and you had these sort of multiple steps, and people were going, hey, what's with the code names? I want to see like a version number, 2504, 2510. And for those who don't know, that's 2-digit, year, month. That's what it is. It's 2510. Yep. We kind of squeaked in a little bit close to the bar this time, but we got it out in the 10th month of 2025. So 2510. But what you're going to have is these wonderful little update profiles where you can choose between, hey, if you want to be an early adopter, you want to get notifications for things like when we drop a beta, when we drop an RC, you get a notice of that to say, hey, there's a new release candidate out for TrueNAS. Go on that early adopter train and say, I want to be notified of that. And you'll get the notification bell when there's an RC. If you're a more risk averse user, you're using it at home, you say, I don't want to load an RC on my stuff ever. You're going to load up the general version. So you'll be able to change that drop down from early adopter to general. Right now, we haven't tagged anything for general. That's why you don't see that as a selectable option. But once it's there, you'll be able to say, hey, I want to be on the general profile. So when we release 2510.1 right out initially, it'll go into that early adopter train. You won't get the notification of it yet. Everybody else will say, hey, I'm an early adopter. I want the .1 right away. I'm going to apply it. If you're waiting on the general train, you'll say, okay, I'm going to wait. They'll test it. Maybe in a week's time or so, it's out there. A couple thousand people are running it. If we found a little, bug that needed a hot fix, we have a 25.10.1.1, then that lands in general, and then you get your notification of it. So you don't have to worry about, oh, I'd have to go and check on this and make sure that it's aligned with what I need. The other thing you get is you get these cool, summary release notes are going to be there. Right now, it's kind of hard to see because you're already on the full release, Tom. But if you have a machine that is running the 2510 RC1, you actually get a summary release notes version of, hey, this is what's changed from the RC1 to the full release. It's right there under that, it'll tell you there's an update. It'll tell you the major changes. It'll give you a link into the release notes so you can dig in further. And we're doing our best to let you to give you a warning of anything that might be a, unexpected breaking change, something like that in there.
That's actually something that you guys have done a really good job. I moved some systems, but not all systems, up to the release candidate, and I have a lot of replications going between them. That didn't break at all. That seemed to work quite fine. I know the challenge usually is if there's a ZFS pool upgrade in between, then or a ZFS feature upgrade that can cause some issues. But yeah, you're good about warning about those things.
Yeah, we try to, we'll never do like a pool version upgrade as part of a software upgrade. We are always going to put that separately just because we want to give you that ability to quickly do a boot environment rollback. Like if you upgrade to 2510 and you say, nah, I don't like 2510, or, something didn't work right, or oops, I had this thing that was previously manually configured. You should just be able to go to system, boot, pick your previous environment, and off you go back again. Once you upgrade your pool version, if you turn on the new features, I don't think there's anything that's, there might be a couple breaking things in 2, 3, 4 if you go out of your way to turn them on. But most of them, there's nothing that would prevent it. I know between 2410 and 2504, you could actually jump back and forth between them. There was no breaking changes. So people upgraded their pool, said, oh no, I can't go back. I said, well, actually, you can in this case. You got lucky.
Yeah. And something I want to point out to people, just a reminder, it's been a number of years because there's not anything new here. I've talked about boot environments. That's still a feature today. You can roll back to the previous versions. You can activate them. So if you want to test something up and go, well, maybe not, let me go back to where I was. That is one of the features I've always liked about TrueNAS is you've kept this from the early days to today. There's a safety net, so to speak. You can try it and go, maybe this isn't for me, or maybe the breaking change is something that causes me a problem. And then you can just roll back on there.
That is a good reminder as well, is that because we do keep them from the very beginning, hey, if you've got a smaller boot device, you might want to go in there and clean out your old boot environments every now and again.
Oh, yeah.
I have a 250 gig boot device in one of my systems. It's got an embarrassingly long chain of boot environments. I could probably revert to like early 13.0 if I wanted at this point, and that machine is running scale now.
Yeah. Yeah. It's crazy. I got a couple of them that I realize, and just because I have a large boot drive on it, because drives are cheap. So depending on how old the system is, so you end up leaving them in for a while. Yeah. Probably you should go clean those up and small. And there's no real risk to that. I mean, you just don't delete the active ones, just go get rid of the ones. So like, do you really need any of the 20 or 21 versions anymore? Might be time to get rid of those.
Yeah.
All right. Quick maintenance thing I forgot to mention. Thank you for our sponsor, Meter. They're our live stream sponsor for this particular month, meter.com/Lawrence Systems, to check them out. Little, housekeeping things we have to do here to keep the lights on. That's all I got to do for that. So I want to swing back over for talking about the other release notes. And actually, you've actually done testing over this. And I'm glad it's right here at the top. So let me throw it in here. NVMe over Fabric. This is cool. And you've got this set up with Proxmox, right?
I do. I actually have been running this on Proxmox since the beta release, and I am a big fan of the NVMe over Fabric functionality. Basically, what it's going to do is it's taking all of that SCSI and SAS overhead of the protocol out of the way. So your remote system, in my case, my Proxmox machine, sees my TrueNAS storage as if it's a locally attached NVMe. So it's on like dev NVMe, 0 and 1 kind of thing, individual namespaces like that. So it's presenting all of those. Where I see the biggest gains from it is, first of all, there's native multipathing, just like iSCSI. So you just connect to multiple initiators or multiple targets on your NVMe over fabrics from TrueNAS, and it will just figure out the pathing on its own and say, okay, here's my two 10 gig paths. I can fire all the traffic down there. I want to, round robin it, load balance it. Works if you happen to pull a plug out of one just for giggles. Works beautifully. The performance is also fantastic. I'm saturating both 10 gig lines for sequentials, and my sort of higher queue depth on the small records has gotten better. And that's because NVMe has a way deeper queue depth than SCSI. Like, I believe our default iSCSI settings allow you to do 128 queued commands against a target. NVMe is, 65,000. So if you're really pushing a lot of small IO through there, you're going to see some benefits from NVMe over Fabric. When we talk about, if you're lucky enough to be using TrueNAS Enterprise, if you've got that in an environment, it's going to be really screaming fast. One of our test systems, we talked about it in the release blog, but it's one of our all NVMe setups. We were pushing 75 gigabytes a second out of this system, not gigabits, gigabytes. And that was NVMe over Fabric with RDMA. So that was just absolutely screaming out there. That's fantastic.
Does SCSI even support RDMA? I've not used that before.
It does. There's a protocol called iSIR, so it's iSCSI extensions for RDMA.
Oh.
We do support that one as well. Of course, your client has to do it as well. And I see we got a question. He says, which one is faster, NVMe over Fabric versus iSIR? NVMe over Fabric is still faster, just because you're cutting out the SCSI overhead. Like, both protocols are shooting over RDMA, so you're cutting out the TCP overhead in that kind of sense. And they're doing that remote direct memory access. But NVMe is just going, hey, I'm way faster at shuttling data packets around than iSCSI is. I don't have to wrap this around and encapsulate it. I'm just going, hey, I'm right to NVMe. You're right to NVMe. We're done here.
There's a great there's a YouTube channel called Retro Bytes, and they got a video on SCSI. And it's a fun reference because they call it like the USB of the storage world, because it's been around for so long. But like anything that's been around a really long time, you're bringing backwards compatibility, which adds overhead. So this NVMe over Fabric is, like you said, missing all the cruft for compatibility that's in there. So I think that's pretty cool. I'm excited to test it, and people know I'm a big XCP&G person. They don't have support for that, and I don't know when they're getting it. So I guess I'll just have to load some Proxmox, and it'll make a bunch of people happy.
I imagine it's going to be soon. The one thing to note is that, unfortunately, we can't do NVMe over Fabric from a VMware initiator yet. Broadcom decided they were going to require what are called fused commands in NVMe. Basically, take two commands, smash them together, make the second one dependent on the result of the first. The open source target that we're using doesn't yet support that. We're working on it. We know it's a big ask. We got VMware customers. We got VMware users in the community. You guys want NVMe over Fabric? We're working this problem in the back end, certainly.
Yeah, but we'll also admit maybe Broadcom made some other decisions that make people less happy too. So exciting to think about. And by the way, if you just want to connect this to Linux, this has been around in the Linux kernel for a little while. So if you just have a base Linux install, you want to connect over to your TrueNAS with NVMe, that's pretty well supported, isn't it?
Yeah, apt install NVMe CLI, and you can use the commands right there. And that's how you do it. It's just literally you're typing like NVMe connect, give the target address and port of the TrueNAS system, and it'll just go boom. Hey, I've discovered it, connected it, and you're off to the races.
Yeah. And just for some clarification, you point these, you don't actually have to have an NVMe array in your TrueNAS. It's simulating. It's better if you do. It's going to be faster. But if you don't, you're simulating NVMe, and you can point it at, is it a ZVOL on the TrueNAS side, correct?
Yep. You're just pointing it to a ZVOL on the TrueNAS side. We've had people point it to hard drives.
Yeah.
Just saying, hey, it's NVMe over here, but on the back end, it's hard drives. And in some cases, they've actually seen improvements.
Okay. So there's some flexibility right on there.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
A little bit.
All right. Next feature. Let me throw the back up. Next feature that's exciting. And there's a lot of features. By the way, the way you guys changed this, I mean, we were just talking about this before. You can do the full change log, the major, the known issues. I like the new menu system for looking at the notes. A lot of people are asking about this. Virtual machines. How are we doing there? How's that on the new version?
So I know there was a lot of controversy in 2504 over the virtual machines where we were, we started with libvirt, we went to Incus, we went back to libvirt. We're still on libvirt in this one. We have significantly improved, hopefully, all of the functionalities and the improvements. The frameworks there to get things up to where we call it, it's enterprise ready. We're enabling the VM functionality on our HA appliances as well, so you can sort of move them back and forth.
Okay.
It's not a live migration because ZFS isn't clustered, so you can't say
Right.
move it live from one controller to another. But we've added a lot of different features in there. So we've got our VM disk import and export should be working correctly in the release. So that basically lets you take things like the raw disk images that are downloadable from places like Home Assistant and say, I want to import this straight into a TrueNAS VM. So you can run it on your TrueNAS itself. You don't have to, do anything complicated to boot it up, customized, and throw it in there. We're adding things. We've improved sort of overall performance. We're trying to streamline things as far as like ISO uploading, things like that. What else we do? Secure boot. We've added that. That's still it's still in the works. We think there might be something we are going to have to issue a quick little fix for that because we've had some people reporting, hey, my TPM is still like it's resetting itself after VM shutdown with Windows 11. So they say I keep getting prompted for my recovery key and with like Windows Hello once I've set that up. So we're going to look into that. I got a Windows 11 VM going right now. I'm going to mess around with it and make sure we can repro this because that's the first step to fixing a bug is being able to reliably reproduce the thing.
Yeah. I mean, I'm really interested because with that and the pass-through options you have, one of the use cases that me and other creators have as well is I was Windows, for better or worse, is got the best driver support and everything for the capture cards. But if I put the capture cards right into my TrueNAS, I don't have to write over the network and use a faster connection. I can just go, hey, we're going to write right to the TrueNAS where our data is right here. This is where it's getting ingested and where it's getting written to. It also kind of removes one extra external system I have. So I'm kind of looking forward to when as that gets a lot more solid.
Yeah, the PCIe pass-through, we've done some changes in that as well. There were some weird edge cases in 2504 and earlier where it would refuse to let you pass through cards on certain types of hardware just because it saw another PCI bridge in the same IO group there.
Okay.
So it's hopefully going to make it a little bit more available for our consumer kind of motherboard user groups. If you had like a full server board, like I have most of my gear is super micro, they'll basically chop up every PCI slot and every device into its own IOMMU group. And that's what's required for the isolation to a VM. Basically, your VM has to be able to say, hey, I want to grab everything in this little defined set of memory registers for PCI, cut them off from the host and shove them to the VM. And on some consumer hardware, it's still like it's tying some little PCI bridge in there, but there's nothing else downstream. But we were sort of going, hey, that's a PCI bridge. Your system's calling it a PCI root bridge. We don't want to put you in a scenario where you've accidentally put like your root PCI bridge of all devices and told the host to isolate it from itself. Where your host is basically just goes, well, I'm going to cut my own legs out from under me. Here goes your storage controller, your network card, all your USB devices. So now not only can you not ping your system, but your drives are down. Oh, and your USB controller was on that too. So you can't even, console in because that's been cut off. So we were trying to avoid that. We think we've sort of not necessarily relaxed the restrictions, but done better validation in 2510. I actually saw a couple people in the forum saying, hey, I upgraded to RC1. I can isolate my GPU now. And I said, nothing changed on your hardware. We just found sort of the right buttons to push and the right way to speak to your motherboard.
The other thing that is actually cool and going down the list here, we talked about the updated profiles, but the automatic pool migration for being able, when you're changing the apps, I did a demo on that. It works great. That's a cool feature as well. This was something that everyone asked me, a lot of people would ask me about it when you first started getting the apps. I know that was probably one of the earlier questions is how do I get them somewhere else? And that went really smooth. I think my only commentary when I did the video was, you can't move it back unless you delete it. There's not a way to, you can do it a command line and do it. There's just not a UI way to delete the old app. So it'll actually just switch back to the old apps. So I don't want it to automatically delete, and that's probably not the ideal way to do it, but maybe a process later after you move them if you want to clean up the old one.
Yeah, I think we can do something like that, like a hey, you have there is a residual apps data set on hard drive pool after your migration to SSD pool, and we'll put a little notice there to say would you like to clean this up, and we'll have to make sure we put a whole lot of checkboxes in there, like you're about to toast some of your data here. Are you sure you really want to do
Right.
this? Okay, are you absolutely sure? Yes. All right, then we'll do it. But
'Cause-
whenever we do something, we definitely wouldn't want to do an automatic data delete.
Right.
That's
Yeah.
that's never a good thing. We want to put sufficient confirmation checkboxes and maybe big red buttons to say you're about to do something destructive. We want to be sure that you're sure. That's
Yeah.
all we're doing here.
I will admit the command line is a safety net because I can go in here and the move is fine. The move goes fine. It doesn't delete anything. When you move back, it just goes back to your old app. So if you changed them after you moved, when you move back, it just goes back to the prior to move situation. Not a big deal. It's way better than deleting it. But that is a nice smooth. If I'm adding a new pool, just move them. It rebuilds them all, and they start right back up. No data loss is the important part. A few people are asking, let's talk about this next. The NVIDIA GPU drivers. What do we have going on there?
Oh man, that was a point of consternation, definitely very early on in the development, because we've had people asking, even back in 2504, they were saying, hey, when are we going to get support for the Blackwell cards, for the NVIDIA 50 series, for RTX Pros, things like that? Because we do have people that are doing some pretty heavy duty GPU compute right on TrueNAS. And the thing that NVIDIA has done there with their Linux driver is they have two separate kernel modules now for the drivers of the, I think they started it with 570. It was probably even way earlier, but 570 was where we started to see it because now you're supporting Blackwell. So what it is they have a nice open source compatible kernel module. That one is required in order to run and activate a 50 series GPU. But that open kernel module requires the GPU system processor in the hardware. It's a little chunk of silicon on the NVIDIA card that basically lets it sort of containerize their closed source blobs, keep them in there. And that's what lets them say, oh, we're going to run this more open firmware on it now. Hey, freedom, hey, open source, it's fantastic. But unfortunately, they didn't introduce the GSP until the Turing generation. So that is your RTX 20 and your GTX 16 series. So if you load the proprietary closed blob, you get everything from the GTX 750 up to the RTX 40 series. But you're cut off there. You can't go to the 50. You load the open blob, you get everything that's brand new and going forward, presumably the 60, 70, et cetera series. But then your early cutoff is the 16 and the 20. So we kind of had to make that unfortunate choice of going, which way are we lining on this one? And ultimately we said, we have to lean more towards the open source side of things. We have to go with, the demand we have for people to use their shiny new Blackwell GPUs for this, like, especially in the AI, the LLM world.
Yeah.
People doing lots of heavy duty machine learning. So we said, we're going to put this out, and the community has created a workaround to let you toggle on the classic kernel mode or the kernel module with the proprietary drivers. So you can, in fact, do that. You have to download a new systemd extension from it, put it in. You do have to turn on the kind of the dev mode, the break glass kind of thing in TrueNAS, but that will re-enable your old GPUs. It does work. So I'll rehash a bit. We talk about it on the podcast, certainly. Yeah. But I'm going to rehash a bit here of why we made that choice. Beyond just the having to go forward, the future is now sort of thing. The systemd extensions jump right into the kernel at a certain level, and being able to overlay them on top of the running file system without a reboot was really what we wanted. That's why when you go and check off the, hey, install NVIDIA drivers, it's just there, it works. You're not rebooting your TrueNAS system. The problem is, if we ship both the compiled ones with the open KMod and the proprietary KMod, well, we've added 500 megs or so to your ISO and your install. Oh. Not a huge thing if you're on broadband. I mean, 500 megs downloads for me in seconds.
Yeah.
But where it's going to mess us up is in our testing path. The the NVMe direct IO on the back end of TrueNAS. And this isn't NVMe over fabrics. This is the ZFS direct IO writing to NVMe bypassing ARC. So another performance thing. We wanted to put that out in 2504, but it was actually conflicting with the NVIDIA K mods, and we had to find a way to get it to work around that. So if we ship those two kernel modules, we've basically doubled all of that test workload for anything that could potentially impact a K mod. So it's basically going to mean we're having to spend a lot more hours testing and validating. It could mean that other features, slip because of conflicts. We kind of had to make that choice to say, look, this is the one we're going to test. This is the one we're going to support. This is the one we're going to go ahead with. Also, if you ship them both, our community is inventive and creative, and it took them, less than 24 hours to find out how to enable the proprietary one and, crucially, ditch the open one at the same time. If we ship them both, somebody will find a way to turn on both. And they'll say, hey, this will make both my old Quadro P400 work as well as my new GTX 5070. Well, in the reality, it's going to make neither of them work, and it might make your system unbootable. Oh. So we really want to avoid people having the potential to foot gun themselves.
Yes.
I'm aware it's not a popular decision among those who have older cards. I mean, I have older cards. I have two Tesla P4s that have been sunset with 2510. I use the new VM functionality to pass them through, and now my TrueNAS system runs Doom, and it does it very well. But I'm aware it's an unpopular decision for those of you on the older cards, but we did kind of have to do something. We couldn't forever keep supporting the older cards.
It just causes breakage. Yeah. I mean, it's like I said, this is behind the scenes of why these decisions had to be made. There's nuance. The puzzle pieces don't always all fit together. Just because it's open source and you can bolt it on doesn't mean it's going to work.
I would have loved for it to be able to just magically work. The hope is that now that we're sort of, once we get through this hump here, the GPU system processor, the open kernel module, and the more open firmware will hopefully mean we don't have to do this again. And that we can say, hey, even if NVIDIA decides to stop supporting this, well, they're on a more open blob now. We can still have people. It'll kind of be the equivalent of the, like how the Nouveau driver in NVIDIA, that one's now even tied in with GSP. I'm pretty sure that they want you to have a GSP. They want you to be running a 16 or 20 series or newer so that they can use those kind of the hooks and keep all of the closed NVIDIA stuff neatly contained and away from kernel.
Nice. Let's see. The certificate management got updated, but let's talk a little bit more broadly, because why not go with TrueNAS Connect and play with that? That's a cool feature. I thought it was pretty neat. I did a video on that, and TrueNAS Connect now is part of 2510. So it's official. I've already showed you how to set it up, and it handles doing the certificates in a clever way. I don't know. I just like it. If you're looking for a way to manage a handful of TrueNASs, this is a new community pushed feature, but there is a paid component of it. But it's pretty neat. Your data stays with you, by the way. This is not just some cloud enabled service. I preface the video with that. I'm going to preface it here too for people who go, I'm not attaching to a cloud. That's not what this is.
Yeah, we cannot and we do not want to see your data, please. Right. We don't need your Linux ISOs. We've got enough.
Yeah. So that's a new feature you can play with, and it will take care of it for those of you that want something simple for all their certificate management. I think that's just a really cool feature, being able to connect them all, not having to click through. And I believe it worked fine when I was setting up replication with it. So because it's all talking locally, it just happens to manage the certificates for you in that way.
Exactly. And we are going to continue to add more features to Connect, including some that are going to be replication focused. We're hoping to add a neat little replication manager as well, so that you can literally just set up replication jobs between multiple systems right through that sort of web GUI to say, hey, here's a data set. It's on server 1. Put it over on server 2. I want you to replicate it every day. And that'll just be it. And we'll go click, click. It's all done.
Yeah. Now let's talk about the API, because kind of related here. The automation you can do, the level of control. I think we talked a little bit about that. Is there a couple things you think are notably cool that you can do with the API now, or that maybe other people have done?
Yeah, I was going to say, I actually see him. He's been hanging out in the chat here. It's Boom Shanker X. So I just want to give a quick shout out to you there, chat. Boom Shanker there. He has been one of the big consumers of our API. He is actually rewriting one of the Proxmox plugins. He says, I only use it for storage. Well, you're doing a lot more than just using it for storage. He's building a plugin for Proxmox that's going to let us leverage that ZFS over iSCSI functionality. And, that's going to require 25.10 on that brand new API. But that's one of the things that we're trying to do, is that basically every single thing that you can do through the TrueNAS web UI is done through the API as well. So if you want to skip our web UI and you want to do that programmatical thing where you say, hey, I want to create this whole batch of data sets. I have a massive cluster at home, and I want them to all be able to create and destroy their own data sets, zvols, set them up as iSCSIs and attach to them. You can do that all through the API. And Chris Moore and I did an episode about that on our own podcast, saying that, hey, we're beholden to those rules as well. All of our web UI, all of that has to go through the API calls. So we're not allowed to run it, end run around it and cheat and issue a ZFS command on the back end. Everything we do through the web UI has to go through our API as well. And
that's cool.
Yeah, it's also much faster in 25.10. I'm sure you noticed, Tom, that just day-to-day use of poking around in TrueNAS got a lot faster after you went from 25.04 to 25.10.
Oh yeah. I want to point that out specifically because this is an Intel N150. That is not a high performance CPU here. So, but when we go through this, and this is a demo. Here you're watching half of a recorded video, and there are, how many snapshots are on this? I scrolled by it. Details, standard, usage. Let's jump over to the data protection page.
Go to data protection and just see how many snapshots you got. And
yeah, there's a lot of these going here. I'm running a snapshot every minute just to do it.
Yeah, click on snapshots up there in the top right, and I'm sure we can just see. Open your periodic snapshot tasks. Open the snapshots button, and see how many. This is going to take a while for it to think about it.
493 snapshots on here, and it still opened that fast on an N150.
Yeah.
That's just me. This used to pause a lot when I did things like this. I'm doing it for some fun reasons. You notice I customize the names, auto minute, auto hourly. I'm doing a video on how to understand your ZFS replication and how to do poll and how to choose which ones to poll and which ones not to poll based on naming schema, etc. So
I have a feeling backup pruning might be a good thing to talk about in that, because you're doing minutely snapshots. So
yes,
it's a very interesting way. I don't know that we've got any big customers doing it on the minute level. We definitely have some that are down in the 15 minutes. So every 15 minutes they take a snap and it rolls up at the top of the hour, and then they take hours for a day. They take days for weeks, and they just kind of roll them up like that. So it gives them that granular recovery, but it kind of it's fades out as time goes along.
Yeah, it's really interesting to be able to tier your backups, and it lets you know. It tells you the retention will automatically be destroyed, gives you the time that it'll be destroyed. There's just a lot of nuance that I think since the last time I did this video, and I don't know when this particular feature, it used to be a little bit less clear. It's very clear now exactly when this is going to happen and how it's going to happen. So I really like this. It's going to be, that video should be out within the next couple days for me, but also back to the point of it's fast. Yes, this, for using a little N150 chip, this thing just buzzes. I was like, this is, we do not have a lot of memory in this system either. We're maxing out everything it can really do, but it's actually doing it quite well. So yeah, there's definitely a speed enhancement. I was happy because I updated it. I always like to do any of my videos on whatever the latest version of TrueNAS is. So I was excited that it's full release now. And yeah, it's definitely a speed enhancement there. What was the other thing I had? Oh, someone had a question about this. I seen it in the comments there. The LXC container situation, or just containers in general. Can you, I think the question was, is there going to be ability to easily back these up in the future for the containers?
Yeah, like the containers, we are going to be continuing to evolve them. I believe they're right now, they might still be using Incus on the back end in that experimental tag. We were hoping to swap them over to libvirt LXC, but I think it actually is still using Incus even in the release. That's why it's still got the experimental tag. but we do plan to give you sort of the full backup functionality with there, similarly to how we do with VMs, to be able to say, hey, back this whole thing up, send this whole ZVol out. Where you're working with VMs and containers that are, changing the data live, it becomes a little bit more complicated in that now you're going to basically get what we call a crash consistent state. Because if you say, hey, this is a VM, I'm going to take a ZFS snapshot of it, unless you've got an agent in the VM and you've got like volume shadow copy kind of awareness, or you're freezing the file system of there, your guest machine might be in the middle of a change. So from the perspective of take that snapshot, back it up, and then restore it, that restored machine might think, hey, I crashed at that exact moment you took the snapshot and I'm back now. So you have to kind of consider that might be how you have to do it, or else we're going to have to write a bunch of like agent level integration. So could be challenging, but I mean, we all like a challenge, don't we?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and it's an experimental feature now. So we've got a roadmap where it's going. Make sure you subscribe to the T3 podcast, because they will definitely be talking about it.
For sure.
You guys are plugged there. For the record, I use storage as MikroTik that I. Oh, okay. I use TrueNAS storage. Okay. All right. We're good clarification on storage.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
I want to go back to a couple. Let's go take a few chat questions here.
Was
rebalancing implemented in 25.10? So I believe you're talking about the ZFS rewrite command, and I believe that one we don't have a UI implementation of rewrite, so you can't just click on a pool and say rebalance. But it is on the command line. So that is the ZFS rewrite command.
Okay.
I think we actually talk about it in a couple of them. We talked about it for balancing. It works when you're adding or removing special VDEVs as well. So if you've just added a special VDEV, or you've changed like the special small block sizes on it to say, hey, I want to catch this, you can run a rewrite and it'll go through and sort of query all your files. If you say, hey, I want to put everything that's smaller than 32K on here, maybe it's, thumbnails or sidecar metadata files, or if you're doing like raw photo editing, you can run a rewrite on that and say, not only are you going to redistribute the data under your underlying VDEVs, but anything that's below that threshold that meets special small block, shunt it over to the special metadata VDEVs.
Oh, that's really cool. I did not know it redid the special metadata. I thought you had to just move the data back and forth, because I think that was like the usual way to do it before.
Yeah, it used to be. We're hoping to be able to eliminate a lot of those. Hey, you've got to like unload and reload your whole pool, or ZFS send between data sets and stuff like that. I think the caveat is the one thing that it couldn't do was block size changes. So that's the one thing that's going to require it. So when you say, hey, I want to go from like a 128 to a 1 meg block size, you are still going to have to move it between data sets, or maybe even off the pool.
I really hope people are doing that in the planning phase and knowing what the block size should be. So that's, but it's cool that it does the metadata ones.
Yeah. It's hard to tell sometimes. And I admit that's something that we're going to try and get better best practices on in the future. We try to have some sane defaults, like when you create a ZVol on a RAID Z, for example, if it's a certain width, it's actually going to warn you to say, hey, you probably shouldn't run like an 8K or a 16K record size on your 4 wide Z1. It's not going to perform great. We'd recommend a 32K. So we do have some things like that, but it would probably be good if we just publish some additional documentation up front, so that people can jump into that even before they build their pools, to say, hey, maybe I don't want a 6 wide Z2. Maybe I actually want 2 3 wide Z1s for this.
Yeah, that's a good point, because just publishing like some of the common scenarios and when they matter, because me and Alan Jude did a talk not that long ago about that tuning, because everyone says, how tune my ZFS for what? Is always, I don't know what tune for what.
How long is a piece of string?
How long is a piece of string?
Exactly.
Let's see here. What are some of the other questions? Did you see any particular one, or want me to start grabbing some?
I was looking up here. I know I saw a couple up here. And Endymion 84, he asked, does NVMe over Fabric multipathing leverage all members of an LACP lag when transferring data? So in this one, much like iSCSI, don't mix NVMe multipathing. It's ANA, asymmetric namespace access. Don't mix that with LACP. Don't do that with iSCSI either, because iSCSI and NVMe over Fabric both natively understand multipathing in the protocol. So you want to set those up to say, if you had 2 members, they're 2 separate subnets, they don't overlap. So your iSCSI or your NVMe traffic just says, hey, I can see the target on both of these subnets. Don't use an LACP with NVMe OF or iSCSI MPIO. You can use LACP with NFS if you're not using like NFS 4.2 with parallel NFS. Even that one, I mean, I don't use PNFS. It has weird edge case failures.
Yeah, it's funny. I just looked at a setup for someone, and they created a bond with LACP, and then they created 2 VLANs underneath, and that's where they put their multipath iSCSI. I'm like, oh no,
nope.
You don't have the redundancy you think now.
Yeah, you've created a nesting situation, and that won't work. You'll end up with both of your VLANs balancing themselves down one leg of the LACP. It's not ideal.
And the question, of course, was, can you look at this, Tom? It's not working the way I thought. Well,
I'm not surprised by that. What do we have here? Just jumping through the chat here.
Can you highlight changes made to the home shares, and if it will allow the homepage of the username to the username again as the previous versions?
I know I saw a couple of people reporting some oddity with home shares about how it was now nesting them as under the individual user's name instead of like a home share. I think this is what you're talking about, like the user's home directory on the per accounts. I'm going to say, Craig, file a official like bug ticket with that one and include a debug information dump from your TrueNAS. Use the smiley face icon. It's up in the top taskbar of TrueNAS. File an official Jira ticket for that one, and we'll look into it because we probably want to see like the internal guts. Yeah, there it is. It's in the smiley face there in the taskbar.
Yep. By the way, this is really important. That I love that you guys did this, so you can directly report a bug, get the details, help the developers. This is a really important part of it, because developers, and this is anyone doing troubleshooting. It's funny how we will, as a lot of technical, the people watching this right now are obviously a lot more technical, and many of us work in tech, and we complain when users say it doesn't print or it doesn't anything, and we don't give details, but then we turn into that sometimes going, I can't get this to work. So make sure you always detail out, because me and you were talking about a resume bug a while back, but I told you I wouldn't even file the bug until I knew I could repeat the problem. Like I tried, and I was documenting it. It was just an important courtesy. Is you got to give the developers a detail. They want to fix it. They don't want to ignore your ticket, but helpful. You got to be really helpful on those. And TrueNAS done a good job with a little smiley face to make it easier. Yeah,
we wanted to take as many roadblocks and impediments out of the way of you guys reporting your feedback, positive, negative, or detailed technical to us as possible. Okay, we got Boomshanker X. He says, is multipath always different subnets? On TrueNAS, yes, it should always be separate subnets. You should never have your initiators, like multiple initiators or multiple targets, in the same subnet, because you get weird behavior with default routing in Linux specifically. It's going to end up with, you think you've got multipaths, they're going to say they're multipath, but it's actually just going to be shooting all of your traffic out of one interface.
Yep.
So you'll get an inbound on, like, if you do like a .1, .2, .3, .4, traffic will come in on the .4, but then it's going to asymmetrically send the reply back out the default route of the .1. So you might get like four times bonds coming in, but only 1 times bond coming out to that specific machine. So slice up your subnets, have them not overlap. Like if you're using like a 10./8, whatever in your home, use like 10.10, 10.20, 10.30, slice them up like that. You've got a huge amount of RFC private space to play with. Go ahead and do it. And I mean, it shouldn't impact anything, because your SAN shouldn't be touching your LAN anyways.
Yeah, and I thought about doing this as a topic, because I have a storage design video where as I've repeated so many times, please quit routing storage first. So don't do that. But second, you can slice these into smaller. They don't all have to be /24, because you usually don't have that many devices on them. So you can use smaller ones and break them up. But you don't need a gateway in any of these either. Matter of fact, in the case
don't have a gateway.
Yeah, don't, because that way they only have one place to go.
Yeah, like you said, Tom, don't route your SAN traffic. It's just not the ideal way to do things, certainly. I kind of blame Broadcom a little bit for enabling routed iSCSI and VMware. I think it was back in like the 6.5 era. They're like, oh, you can route your iSCSI traffic now. And I went, thanks, guys. That really helps me, advocate for good subnet design here.
I have fixed problems where people were routing it through the firewall, and their IDS would occasionally cause problems. That wasn't what they sent when they contacted us. They're like, we can't have iSCSI disconnecting. That's odd. Okay, let's figure out why. Why is iSCSI unstable? Because it's a really stable, once it's set up, it's a really stable thing. Yeah. Then you find out the IDS apparently flags once in a while, or it gets overloaded. I don't know. It causes it to drop. And I'm like, who told you to route this through the firewall?
Yeah, I was going to say, talk about latency. I'm sure that even performance would have been a horrible scenario there.
Yes, that
Yeah.
was
Let's just have your IDS spend all of its time inspecting iSCSI traffic that should never be touching an open circuit anyways. Think of it, it should be closed circuit TV. That's how you think of your store networks.
And I love it when companies have like offline, almost separate fabric. And I see people talk about the new, because man, this
That's
is a price
FC.
point deal.
That's
400
what
gig
FC's for.
Ethernet. Yeah.
That's what FC was for, because it was great. You'd say, hey, it's fiber channel.
Yep.
It doesn't speak TCP.
Yeah.
You can plug your multi-mode fiber into an FC SAN switch and it'll just go, what the heck is this?
Yep.
Get out of here.
Keep that stuff absolutely separate. It's your best path to not having to hire a consultant. So
exactly.
Save you a lot of pain.
Yeah, I'm gonna pick a quick one here. I just saw it. I saw it go by, and I wanted to jump into it right away, but we were in the middle of something.
Sure.
Justin Nash actually says, he goes, "You make deleting apps happen without a confirm." Well, now there's a big red button here saying delete staring me in the face when I'm trying to delete this Scrutiny app that I got running. So I think that's a bit of a confirm there. Like, we're not just going to make it disappear without any warning. The big red button is indeed right there, and it says, "Hey, you know,
if I
Tom's going to do it live here.
We're going to do it live." And it wants. By the way, nice add was the remove images, because before it used to, it would keep them, and you can go and remove them, but it would keep them too, because if you don't need the app, you don't need the images of it to recreate it. But there's a delete button.
Yeah, if you're deleting it to redeploy, you uncheck that, and then you don't have to pull them again.
Yeah, exactly. Because sometimes I've done that. I break things a lot. That's how I learn. Is I create some really weird edge cases.
that is a great way to do it. That is a great way to break things.
Yeah.
What are we going here? We got some other one-off questions. Let me look here. We got Suwak, Suduwak. I'm not sure. What is the expected date for it going to general release? I don't know. Depends on how successful it is. As I mentioned, we already got some people finding a few bugs. We want to make sure that we squash anything that's, people would really bump into and maybe get themselves hurt on before we push it to general. It might be a couple weeks. It might be end of November. It's basically just going to be, hey, when we're really confident that we've fixed anything that people found right out of the gate.
I'm an early adopter because I have a handful of TrueNAS systems, and I manage them and use them productively because it's how I record all my videos and everything else. And I trust CFS enough that even though I'm upgrading, because the one thing that you guys have always been solid about, we can complain about apps breaking or not having the right name showed in the home share, but for all the versions, and I mean, even the systems that are old that I migrated off of the original TrueNAS Core BSD, my data integrity has been there. That's never been a concern. Even if an application breaks, whatever, like I mentioned earlier, the boot environments I can roll back. So I do encourage all of you to do the testing. It's also a great learning experience.
What do we have? We got Rami Kalani and a bunch of numbers. He says, when will NVMe OF be ready to be mounted in Windows systems? Right now, you need an NVMe OF initiator from Windows, though, and I don't believe it ships with one. I want to say Starwind has one that is free to download. Go there, point it at your TrueNAS system, and you will have NVMe over Fabric on Windows.
Yeah.
Keep in mind,
any company that has it would be Starwind. They make some neat stuff.
It is. Now, keep in mind that is still a block protocol, so do not mount it on multiple Windows systems at the same time. That is a recipe for corruption. If you're using a single system that's hooking in and you want it to just go really screaming fast, NVMe over Fabric is your ticket. But if you're sharing files back and forth between A and B, use a file sharing protocol, use SMB, use NFS, something like that. So that's a good one.
Yeah, it is just like iSCSI. Block protocols versus, shares, very different things.
Block and file are two different things. Digging in a little bit more before we get back to hyping up 2510. Let's go. Mark McMillan, he says, what are the best practices after adding a special VDEV to an existing pool? Well, in 2510, you would be able to run one of those ZFS rewrite passes, and that would take all of the metadata for that, and it would basically shuffle your metadata onto that dedicated special VDEV. So even if you aren't saying, hey, I want to put tiny little files on there, if you do the rewrite pass, it will say, hey, I want to put the metadata. So, the modification times, the block pointers, all that other crucial bits, those will go onto your SSDs, and those will go much more quickly. Now, there is one point of caution that I want to talk about. I brought it up on the podcast this week as well. Once you add a special VDEV, that is a critical VDEV to your pool. You cannot lose that VDEV. So do not add a single SSD. Add at least a pair of them. While we are on the subject of mirrors, if you add that special VDEV and you later want to remove that, you must have mirror VDEVs for your data as well. If you add a special VDEV to a pool that has RAID Z data VDEVs, it is there for good. There is no way presently to remove a VDEV from a pool that has RAID Z anything members. So you add it, you are stuck with it.
Yeah, that's something I think a lot of people, it's a little nuanced, but it matters a lot. I am working on my new, because I've been watching all the development of this, my new ZFS torture test is going to include some special metadata VDEVs and showing what happens when I yank them out and everything goes sideways.
Yeah, it does. It's basically, if anybody's old enough like us to remember the Dewey Decimal System, the little library index cards at the front where you would look up the number of where you would find that book. Imagine trying to find a book in a library after somebody has set fire to those index cards. It's theoretically possible, but best of luck doing it.
Yeah, there are very few humans you can contact that will be able to restore that. It's narrowed down. ZFS is amazing level of integrity, but when you break it proper, like by yanking that, the people that can recover the beautiful nuance of ZFS is it's a challenge. It's a challenge.
I've fixed some broken pools, but generally once you have metadata corruption, that's the point where I'm saying you are best off going to backups. I hope you have them. If you don't, then I'm most likely sorry for your loss.
Yeah. It's just like losing the encryption key. I've had a lot of people that lost encryption keys.
That's even worse.
Yeah. I'm like,
you're cooked.
It's working as designed is what I tell people. They're like, but it's only so many characters. I said, yeah, that's a lot of entropy and it's working as designed. Like you can guess.
If you don't have the key, you are just another attacker trying to get in, and it is very good at keeping them out.
Yeah. It's always people asking but Tom, there's got to be some side way to do it, right? No, this is really good encryption. It's very well engineered.
Yeah. Let me go. What do we have? A quick one here from Reboot Technologies. He just says Intel E1000 driver fix. I also like the Clippy profile picture.
Me too.
Clippy would never deliberately introduce bugs into the Intel driver. He would not do that. So regarding this is honestly the first I've heard of this. I don't know that I have any hardware myself that uses the E1000. Again, get a bug ticket in there. Drop a debug in there. Give us a little bit of background on what exactly this, the driver bug is. I probably have an E1000 card kicking around somewhere, and somewhere in this blurred background, I'm sure I have a machine I can throw it into and see what exactly is making it blow up. I did file a bug report, but couldn't stay on the system. I probably couldn't stay on the system long enough to get it. Okay. Had to roll back to 24.10. All right. Just drop a note in the chat. Let me know which version it's on and what's breaking. I'll see if I have some time to poke into this one, and I'll get into this.
I also want to make sure people know, join the TrueNAS forums, participate, engage. There's all kinds of cool people writing scripts and everything in there too. So engage with that community as well.
Exactly. Yeah. Find me on there as Honey Badger, of course.
Yep.
Yeah. Hey, you got
it's on 25.01 and 25.10. Okay.
All right. Awesome.
Well, I think how much more time do we have? As I want to be respectful of your time. I think we're coming up to the top of the hour here.
I'm good. Let's keep going.
A couple more questions. All right.
A couple more questions. And I saw a nice donation there showing the love from Craig Reynolds.
Greatly appreciate, Craig. Thank you very much for the donation.
Yeah, that was excellent. Let's go in here. I see Caves Critter. He says, I will be pulling a 4-port USB PCI card and replacing it with an 8-port HBA on an existing TrueNAS system. Any advice for a noob? Well, you're on the right road, which is get away from USB attached devices. I'm assuming in this case, you say you're pulling this card because you have like external USB attached devices. Please tell me if I'm going down the wrong road here, but you are definitely going the right way with this. As long as they are individual USB disks and it's not like a 4-in-1 kind of thing that you had attached there, you should just be able to hook all of those drives up internally to the HBA. ZFS will find them, find the partition layouts, and should just sort of automatically import the pool and say, all right, you're back up and running. Obviously, don't do this on a live system. Turn your power off first, unplug it. I am saying this with purpose. I actually had somebody pull out a card live and say, hey, what happened? And I said, you didn't just do that, did you? And oh yeah, I did. And sure enough, there in their log was, a surprise PCI device removal.
Those devices don't like surprise removals.
Yeah. Well, they can generally do surprise removal very well. It's the surprise waking up again that's often the problem.
It's worth noting too that ZFS is not a hotspot file system either, so expects those drives to be there.
Mm-hmm. It will not be very happy. Again, we've written a lot of stuff into the ZFS handling and the code itself to have it handled, so that's why we can do things like NVMe hot swap on our enterprise appliances.
Yeah.
I've seen a couple people in Discord say they were trying to get that done. I forget the gentleman's name, but he was doing like an 8-in-1 M2 to U2 conversion caddy and a PLX card or something. And it's a case of, once again, it would handle the hot removal just fine, but it wouldn't handle the hot insert. And that's because you actually had to have a side channel control between the PLX controller switch and the backplane to say, hey, this is when it was physically actually removed and re-added.
Yeah.
Once you connected that, it worked. And then it would say, hey, once this little serial thing fires off a signal, hey, Bay 5 was just reinserted. It would actually reinitialize the PCI device. It would power it back up, take it out of the D3 cold state, and you had a PCI device reattach itself live.
Yeah, I should correct. ZFS does allow hot swapping of drives. I'm talking more to the controller card, just for.
Yes, don't hot plug a controller. Generally, that's going to be very bad.
Yes.
Yeah. I also see a quick note here from Craig Reynolds as well, who gave that donation. He says, "I was able to add Jira tickets, but no longer have the ability to add tickets." Jump on the forums if you can. Just drop me a DM. I'm Honey Badger there. I think there's something that goes on with Jira if you were on there from long ago and something in the migration that Atlassian did messes up permissions. I think you might have to submit it in as a bug or some other thing. I think if you try to submit it as like a feature request or improvement, it'll automatically say you have no permission to do it. But yeah, drop me a DM on the forums. Again, I'm Honey Badger there. Just let me know what's going on and I will see if I can get that sorted for you. So thanks again for that.
Awesome. And we see Boomshaker building my business, MSP business based on Tom and TrueNAS. Awesome. I highly recommend it. And you're using both Proxmox and XCP-ng. So cool. I'm curious. I mean, because I have not tested NVMe over Fabric or even looked deeply into it. I'm making probably a broader assumption that XCP-ng doesn't support it. But if you do find a way to get that working, that would be really interesting to me. Because I was playing with multipath iSCSI on it yesterday. I don't love it. But I don't love multipath iSCSI. It's not a complaint at all about TrueNAS. It's just the nuances of setting that up.
Yeah. Anytime you have to drop to a command line to do something, it becomes a little bit more challenging. So that's what we're hoping we can, leverage this wonderful new API and the efforts of, helpful people in the community like Boomshanker hanging out in the chat there to get good plugins written for these open source hypervisors and even work with these open source hypervisors themselves to say, hey, we'd like it if we had an API endpoint that could automatically engage your multipathing. And then we'll just be able to say, hey, someday in the future, it'll be you're running Proxmox. Great. Go grab the TrueNAS plugin from their official repository, point it at your system, and it's going to just sort of auto discover all your iSCSI endpoints. It'll set up multipathing for you. Maybe even we'll get to the point where it's going to do it for all the Proxmox hosts in a cluster that are going. And then they can all just say, oh, here's all your TrueNAS stuff. I see you got some file systems already. You got some VMs. Let's import them. Let's get it going. That's the dream world. And we're really trying to get it there.
It's the whole, code that drives the fabric that just builds out all these things. It's just such a cool concept to me. I love it. Like the Terraform concepts and everything else, Ansible for some of the basic automation, but Terraform being able to just build that, or Open Tofu, whatever you're using now. I know the Terraform's got their own issues.
Infrastructure is code.
Infrastructure is code. We'll just broadly say it that way. That's the words I'm looking for.
Exactly. All right. We got another question popping in here. He says, what are the best practices? It's from Diaz Rocks. Yeah. HDD spin down, or is it not advised? Generally not advised. hard drive spin down is one of those things where that tends to be, it's the startup spin down that happens. That's typically when drives will expose their failure cases, because they're starting, they're stopping, they require that power to get over the, static friction and the inertia of just sitting still. Plus, ZFS in general is writing to your disks every 5 seconds. So if you force it to spin down and say, hey, we're not going to accept those writes every 5 seconds, you extend your timeouts, ZFS may actually say, hey, why aren't these disks responding? It might do something as drastic as saying kick them out of the pool. So
yeah,
general best advice, don't spin down your drives. If you're looking to save power, build on a low power system like Tom's got going there, like one of the N150s or a low power ECC thing.
I will also mention too, the idle wattage of drives is really low. It's that spin up inertia where you spend the extra electricity, but the idle power is really, really low on most of these drives. So when they're not doing much other than TrueNAS doing its, atomic writes every 5 seconds, that's not where a lot of your power is going. It's usually, especially processor and some of the related circuitry, are drawing more than the drives. I mean, unless you have an array of like 30 or 40 drives, but if you have an array of 30 or 40 drives, it's probably not what your power is not usually the question you have there.
Exactly. What's funny is that SAS drives and NVMe high-end drives, they'll actually draw a lot more power than spinning drives. Like they'll suck down 20 to 25 watts per slot on them.
Yeah.
So if you've got those guys cooking along with a heavy workload, they are a significant consumer of power and a source of heat. And you got to be aware of that, especially if you're doing a DIY build. If they're right at the front of your case and you're sucking all your fresh air is coming in over those drives, that's going to be pre-warmed. So make sure you're not, make sure to balance between silence and performance there, certainly.
Yeah. People are kind of shocked how many watts even an NVMe uses. And really simple. When you see a big heatsink on something, including NVMe drives, that's because there's some wattage going through there. So it's definitely a thing. Yeah.
See if it unfocuses. You can see the fins on this drive. So enterprise right here.
Yep.
It's thinned drives for heat dissipation.
Yeah.
They're fantastic. All right. Let's jump into another one. I was going to say we got Enbirch here with a pretty nice ride there in the thumbnail. I like it.
Yeah.
What's the process behind getting third-party drivers updated into the kernel modules? I have a Broadcom LSI, and the drivers baked in seem to be quite old compared to the recent phases. We actually like that. That should be a case where it's pretty well updated. We love our LSI controllers here. I'd want to see what exact version it's running, and are we sure it's not the firmware in there? I think we might actually have firmware pushes written into the code. So I'd want to see what's going on there. Generally speaking, third-party drivers getting updated and included, a feature request might be the way to do it. But remember that certain third-party drivers, that'll have to be something that is really storage related. Like I know somebody asked us about including modified drivers for video cards, whether it's the i915s for SRIOV or the the forbidden NVIDIA kernel ones that we are not allowed to do. Basically, if it's something that's going to get, naughty EULA violations sent to us or make me have to have discussions with our legal team, it's going to be a no in that kind of third-party driver. But if it's something that it's like it's an HBA or a network card, like a Mellanox CX7 or something like that, let us know. Put a note on the forums and we'll try to jump in there.
Yeah. I see this one asking about the T3 podcast.
Yeah. Do we get a lot of feedback and discussion? Yes, we actually do. We always ask for lots of feedback in there. We want people to, jump in there, get in the comment section. We have an email address. It's t3@truenas.com. You send us your positive, your negative, your questions. We get a lot of discussions going on there. We've actually had, some ideas come in there for people to say, hey, we want to, I want to see this happen. We've actually had a couple people ask, hey, can I be on the show? And we actually brought a few in to have some interviews. So
yeah, you had the one with ARM, which was particularly interesting. You had a guest on for that. That's kind of cool.
The ARM builds of TrueNAS. I should check and see if he's got his ARM builder up and running for 25.10. I think he said he would do that, but not until we hit a full release. So
fair.
Want to make sure, see if there's any bumps there. Yeah. Where do we go there? Yeah. 10, 20 terabyte drives, and was thinking about spinning them down and thought about it more, and it was a bad idea. It probably is. Just keep them cool, keep some airflow on them. You know, it's one of those kind of cases where it's probably going to cause you more grief than it's worth in terms of power saved, because if you spin them up and down and you save maybe $20 or $30 of power over the year, but you end up killing a drive a year sooner than it could have been, it's probably a bad trade-off there.
Yeah, I get it that electricity in some places has jumped up in price, but hard drives haven't gotten that cheap either. So
well, it's a spoiler alert. They're going to get more expensive, I'm afraid. You know, for those of you watching who don't already know, there's been quite a few news articles written about it, but you should expect to see your DRAM prices, your SSDs, and your hard drives all continue to climb. We've seen it already ourselves. You know, DRAM spot prices up like 30% already. Even DDR4 is being impacted. Drive prices are definitely going to be going up. It's because of the big AI boom, not just for, you know, the performance drives for, you know, the inference and storage of the models, but hey, they're wanting to store all this output. People are, you know, there's all these like cloud-based video generation now with like Sora and the other models like that. All those videos got to be saved somewhere when you guys generate them. So they're all getting dumped onto disk, and all these companies are retaining them for however long their legal hold period is. So they're sucking up an awful lot of hardware here. So
it's really it's crazy to me that my video card is worth more 2 years later, because I have one of those A6000s with 48 gigs. It is worth more now than 2 years after you buy it. Like that is
nice.
Yeah, it's one of the few times in computer history where something keeps increasing consistently over time.
Your parts are appreciating in price. That's a fantastic world to live in.
Yeah, it's a weird situation. There's never a time I thought I would say this, and I've been in this business a minute. So.
All righty. Well,
I will just bring this up that we addressed it at the
let's
beginning, and it's going to be on the T3 podcast. So listen to the next T3 podcast.
All right. Yeah. So I was going to say, so somebody had to say it. It's the elephant in the room. What's the thought around hiding the smart testing from the GUI? The reality on this one is that smart is not as smart as it's panned out to be. The smart tests in the GUI, I mean, it was really basically showing you a pass fail. And in a lot of cases, it was giving either a false positive or a false negative. You'll see it on the podcast. I'll put the actual stats up on the screen, but I have an enterprise SSD. Now, this is not like a cheap SMR drive or something. 2,000 reallocated sectors, 2 pending outstanding, a whack of ECCAC errors, a bunch of, read error, FPDMA queued or stuff sitting in there in the logs. But Smart says it's good. Smart tests, both short and extended, are passing on that drive. So it would have said it was green. The real thought process behind it is we are still running Smart. The functionality is still there. The tests can be scheduled if you really want them through cron, but we are actually pulling the drives behind the scenes, and we are alerting based on sort of the proactive metrics that get tagged in the drives. Like SSDs, we're looking at like erasure count. We're looking at, failed, start stops, high load cycles, things like that. We're trying to query the data in the back end of the hardware first so that we can fire out the alerts to you before we have to wait for Smart to throw the failure. And in the same token, Chris actually said he had the inverse happen. Smart was telling him up and down that a drive failed. And he said at that time, he didn't want to swap it out. So he didn't. The drive, I think he said, kept spinning for like 3 more years, just fine. He had other drives fail out on him before that one ever started to throw visible errors in ZFS. And typically, we'll see the workflow we see is ZFS will surface the errors first. It's going to pop them up in that storage pane. It's going to say, hey, you had a read error. You had a write error. You had a checksum error. And the first thing people are going to do when they see that is typically they don't go to, hey, did it pass its last Smart test? They go, I want to open the command line. I want to run, SmartMon on this directly. And I want to see those raw stats. I want to do a Smart Control -A. I want to see what exactly is causing this thing to fail. And maybe they say, oh, holy crap, the temperature's like 55 degrees.
Yeah. I would say temperature monitoring is still probably important because you want to make sure that, especially in custom build scenarios.
100%. Now we have introduced some better temperature monitoring with the drive temp module. I actually saw somebody make that comment already to say, hey, I actually have drive temperatures now. It doesn't just report null or, some wildly incorrect surface of the sun kind of temperature. We're going to continue to try and improve those drive temperatures, give you multiple thresholds for alerting so that you can catch them beforehand. It's going to be that one's going to be a bit challenging because especially you have multiple different drive types in a system, not just models, but protocols. And, how do you set your alerts so that you're not getting flooded by false positives and you end up with alert fatigue? You're doing the Homer Simpson thing of, oh, what's this error mean? It means the tape fell off, and you just kind of ignore it and dismiss your drive temperature alerts. Because I've got some SAS drives that they really want to be kept cold. They'll start throwing errors at me at 40 degrees Celsius. They say, I'm slowing down until I cool off below this point. But I've got a bunch of SSDs that are perfectly comfortable chilling at 55 all day long. They're in the same system. So obviously, I want to find a way to adjust those thresholds.
Yeah.
But yeah, temperature is really important. Temperature is the thing that kills storage. So make sure that, especially if you've got a rack mount system that you bought, you got like one of those super micros, it's a 2U, 3U, something like that. I know a lot of people are tempted to say, I got to swap out these noisy fans. I got to stick some Noctuas in there. I want this thing to be whisper quiet so it can sit in my living room. When you are packing 24 drives into a 3U or a 4U size chassis, there is not a lot of space to pull air through. And you have to think about the amount of linear airflow that's flying through those things.
Yeah, that's critical, especially for those custom build folks. I have a weird case and I can stuff drives in all the slots somehow. The temperature monitoring makes a lot of sense to do that because you're risking that overheating of a drive and causing sudden death of it.
Yeah, especially for you guys with custom builds. If you've got a Broadcom HBA in there and it is older than a 9400, so if you got one of the classic, the 9207s, the 9300s especially, hey, check the temperature on those things. Use one of those little laser probes or something. Don't use your finger. You will burn yourself if it's too hot. But get a little airflow on those guys too. They like to be kept cool.
Just want to say a big thank you to the super chat that came in, $10 donation, much appreciated.
Hey, thanks for tuning in as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Charles Ashford says, do you foresee 3.5-inch drives going away and having hot swap 2.5 or even M2 NVMe's instead? I have a home lab. Maybe enterprise is already moving in that direction. What are we seeing? Well, we're definitely seeing 2.5. We've been running 2.5, and I think we might have had a 1.8 form factor briefly, but all of the SSDs are now in basically 2.5-inch format. As far as hot swap, we're not hot swapping M2. The form factor you're looking for there is U2 or U3. Yep. They look like they're SAS drives. It looks just like one. Connector even looks like one. Don't know if it'll unblur for it, but this is NVMe in a hot swap form factor that looks kind of like your traditional SSD. It's about twice as thick as the other guys, but that's just a factor of it being a beefy enterprise drive.
Yeah. But with Seagate coming out with their new, I think they call it Hammer, the
heat assisted.
The heat assisted. They're using a laser to shoot the platter to heat it up to be able to write to it. The hard drive manufacturers still have a few tricks up their sleeves. Density is getting bigger, and for those of us that have massive amounts of archive needs, it is just not practical to put them on any of the solid state devices for cost.
Yeah. 3.5 drives are not going to go away for that sort of the warm and the cold storage tiers. There's been lots of talk about, hey, this year will be the death of spinning drives for sure from various other vendors. No, we're even talking about that on our podcast again today. Shameless plug. Seagate's planning on they're scaling up to, they're hoping for 100 terabyte drives within probably 5 years or so. That's an awful lot of data. So they're looking at some other exciting things. They're talking about having drives that can actually fail out individual platters. So when you're talking about a 5-platter drive with potentially 20 terabytes on each, instead of just dropping the whole drive out on you, it'll be built in a modular way so that it can actually say, hey, this platter has failed out on there. Your drive's going to logically fail, but then it's going to come back to life as an 80 terabyte drive, and so on and so on. Until eventually over time, it might finally drop out and say, okay, now I'm completely useless. But as it fails down, it would go from 100 to 80 to 60 to 40 to 20, and then finally cook itself for good.
Yeah. I'm still, I think they still have pages up for it, but I don't see any new ones for sale. Is those dual actuator drives? I'm wondering where those will land, because we have a bunch of those in use at my friend, and we wrote petabytes of data because it's writing data and archiving data and deleting it and rotating it out, and they've held up great. We're still buying some more of them because they're on the used market, but I think they might be disappearing, which is a shame because they're shockingly fast.
Yeah.
I've done a whole video. Wendell's done a video on them. They're kind of interesting. I think Seagate's the only manufacturer of them. They're basically 2 read-write heads. So you got one set of platters, but 2 read-write heads, and they show up as 2 drives on the SAS model. They're interesting.
Yeah, but they're complicated to manage, and TrueNAS does not have sort of the middleware set up to handle the multi-actuator drives. I believe you're right in that Seagate is the only one doing the multi-actuator, which is different from the MA of magnetically assisted magnetic recording. I think they put it all under the umbrella of energy assisted. So whether you're using magnetically assisted or microwave assisted or heat assisted, it's basically you're doing something to the platters to try and pack your bits in even more tightly. What do we got here? Let's look at, I was going to say RC Dennis here. He says, I'm on 2404 and it's working flawlessly. Is it EOL and should I upgrade? 2404 is before we made the shift to Docker. So at this point, if you've got apps on there, it's going to be a bit of a challenge for you to upgrade, because you're going to have to find a way to back up sort of your apps and that kind of data before you make the jump to any new version, because there's no more auto migration. That window did in fact close. If you are just using it for pure storage workloads, so like SMB, NFS, iSCSI, etc., I would definitely say upgrade. 2410, 2504, you could back up a configuration and do a clean install and restore it all the way up to 2510. But yeah, I'd recommend jumping up a little bit. We've made some good improvements since 2404.
Definitely time to upgrade.
Yeah.
How big are the hammer drives? I'm wondering. What is the
biggest hammers?
30 terabytes.
30 terabytes and 32 if you count SMR, I think.
Yeah.
But we don't count SMR.
No.
We don't like SMR.
No one likes that.
No. What do we got? We got another one coming in from Scar. Scar here, he says, correct me if I'm wrong. You guys have also invested in HexOS. Are you worried about the hate it's received from not being transparent? Honestly, I haven't been following any of the drama there. We do still talk to the HexOS guys. I'll talk to John and see if he's got anything to share. But I mean, I'm not aware of any sort of drama going on there with HexOS. I don't think it's my place to comment on any of that kind of stuff. Yeah,
I've talked to them. I don't keep up with, because some people thrive on drama and I don't. So I'm not aware of anything. But
if we want drama, we'll pull another feature out of our product.
Yeah, you got enough to deal with there.
I got enough to deal with the smart data right now.
Yeah. There's a question I kind of will. It's way too far back to me to roll, but someone asked about buddy backups, and it jogged my memory because HexOS talked about that. You can do this already because you guys have Tailscale, and there's probably other ones, and you can custom load like NetBird overlay networks to allow VPN. So if you're looking for a buddy backup, I've done a ZFS replication over Tailscale. That is a supported feature because Tailscale will attach as a Docker image. Then you can say, hey, have Tailscale talk to wherever the other server is at your buddies, and so you could do essentially a ZFS replication to your buddies.
Yeah. Now I see somebody said following up about TrueNAS Connect, like, hey, will that feature potentially help us connect and configure buddy backups? So TrueNAS Connect being, sort of a live web developed product, we're going to be able to add features as we go down the road. So we are planning on doing some replication management in there. We're going to set that up as features, and hey, maybe we'll look at implementing something along the lines of a buddy backup. Like, you want to give your buddy that kind of key to your system in that sense. You trade them back and forth, and you say, hey, we're going to let you cross replicate. Obviously only do that with people that you trust, probably use encryption on your data sets anyways, just for that. We like that zero liability, zero intelligence kind of backups. Like, hey, I'm just going to send bits over here and you got some room for them. Great. It's a sealed container. You don't need to touch it.
Yeah. And kind of a good workaround if you're looking. SyncThing is one of my favorite tools to run inside of that. SyncThing is something I've been using for years. SyncThing supports, and has for a number of years now, blind nodes essentially where you have to use an encryption. I love this feature because then you can have your buddy running sync thing. They can use that sync thing, and one of the file shares or connections you have essentially to it will be fully encrypted. So they'll see a blob of data, but they can't even get the file names or metadata. So you can reliably sync to their system, and you can trade, and you'll share some of your bandwidth and they share some of theirs and their storage, but you're blind. You don't have to have any access to it. Neither one of you do. You just have to have a transport layer of, I mean, you could use a syncing relay servers to avoid using VPN. I'd recommend using VPN, set up Tailscale or something simple like that, build a couple rules between them. Not that hard to do. Maybe I should do a video on that topic of how to share with a friend with sync thing, because it's a good right now solution until there's like something easier. I know that's, like I said, a goal for HexOS, and making that easy so you don't give your buddy access or SSH keys to your other server, because that is the concern, is if you do replication, you do get access to that data. So if something happens to yours and you're sending the data over, this is kind of the push-pull concept. People have keys to each other. So SyncThing avoids that because it's sharing at the application layer. Nobody needs access to each other's TrueNAS at all. Not at all.
That's a safety measure. Like you can set it up with cross-pull replication instead of cross-push, so it's a little bit more safe that way. But yeah, defense in depth here is great. Adding that zero knowledge encryption is always fantastic. Again, it's much the same way as how we work. Like, hey, we're giving you a great set of tools here. We want to be like the Snap-on of the technology industry. We're giving you a fantastic toolbox. We don't care what kind of car you're building with it. Go build something awesome and just, show us that post your time slip off the drag strip. That's what we want to see. And pick one out here, just going a little bit back. Terry Johnson, 3100. He says, need to figure out what HBA is needed for a Dell T710. So that is one of those tower servers, dual socket. I'm going to say based on the number that is from the like Westmere Xeon 5600 era. That guy probably shipped with like a PERC 6i and might have had an option for like the H700. Those ones are a smidge too old, so you can't even cross flash those into a regular HBA. I would say if you're buying an HBA now and you want just a budget option, don't go any older than the SAS 2308 series. So that's going to be like your, I think it was your 9207 and your 9205s if you're buying those. But buy something that you can cross flash down into an LSI SAS 2308 or newer than that. Those ones are still a little bit warmer. But if you're rocking a T710, you're probably not pushing like all SSD performance stuff in there. If you are pushing SSDs, I'm going to say look for like a one that would become the SAS 9400 or better. Better chipset on there, runs a lot cooler. I think like the TDP is halved on those. And if you want to really go wild, the 9400 does support NVMe breakout. It's a tri-mode adapter, so it can take NVMe devices. It will masquerade them as SAS, so you don't get full throttle on them, but you can theoretically connect NVMe to those guys.
Yeah, the 710 series is a little long in the tooth right now. So
this car, yes, I did know that off the top of my head. I do know that's exactly.
Look, we're nerds. I mean, we're just showing our nerd here.
I have been in IT for over 20 years. This kind of stuff is just second nature to me. I just know these things. That's how it is.
And you've been doing TrueNAS for quite a few.
I've been doing TrueNAS for 15 of them at this point.
Yeah,
not working here, but just using the stuff.
Yeah, it's an addiction. Storage. Fun stuff. I do have to wind this down in about 7 more minutes because I will have another appointment coming up soon. So 7 more minutes. What's the next few questions we can squeeze in here?
Yeah. Anybody got anything quick? But let's look at anything more you want to pick on, Tom, and like the release notes. Anything exciting? Maybe you're looking forward to. I know you got a few I know you talked about using NVMe over Fabric and.
Yeah, I'm excited to actually test that out. I'm also really excited to get back into, it's a video I did a long time ago, and it's how I met some of you folks at TrueNAS. Is like, hey, this weirdo is zapping hard drives with electricity and showing that he can recover ZFS. And so
what is this crazy guy doing electrocuting his RAM chips?
Yeah, I wanted to show because there was such an argument for this of it came down to the ECC argument. And I'm like, it's better to have it, but it's not required, because the number of people that would say it's required or you are risking sudden death. And I'm like, I'm ripping RAM out and zapping it, and this ZFS pool won't die. I'm like, come on, guys. And there was like so much controversy on that video. And it's like, well, my editing skills, because that was like 7 or 8 years ago, I have more tools to edit. And I realized I should revisit that video. So that's something I'm excited about, to kind of just show it and combine that with, well, as much as I can pull some RAM out, you can't pull the special VDEV out. So there are scenarios you can create where you can, as you said, kind of footgun yourself. And that's
you can
talking about.
You can, in fact, break ZFS. You really have to do it deliberately.
Yeah.
And that's part of the reason that I picked my name as Honey Badger, is because much like the titular Honey Badger, ZFS doesn't give a crap for the most part. Thanks, Terry. You can always go back and review the notes or the things that I've said. Again, jump on the forums, tag me in as Honey Badger. I also see we got Jeff from Craft Computing there in the chat. Hey, Jeff, nice to see you there, buddy. I want to say I actually followed a lot of your tutorials there as far as getting the cloud computing up. That's why my TrueNAS machine can actually run Doom now. So I'll probably pop into your Discord later just to say hi.
Yeah.
So thanks again for that.
It will, and if I message me on Discord, and I can connect you with him. So hey, Jeff, we all want to talk about TrueNAS, and so we'll get that going.
Absolutely. Well, it's a party now, but yeah, it sounds like you got to go for a bit, Tom.
Yeah, so another appointment coming up. More consulting. So, but because I look at the customer that I have the consulting booking, it is a massive company using TrueNAS. So
yeah.
They, one time I got to talk about, because I can't always name customers, but they have a neat use case of the way they do some of their build in their dev environment to use deduplication, so they can build things and it deduplicates real easy, because it's just like they need to duplicate a bunch of copies of it for testing purposes. And it's one of the times where deduplication helps them spin things up really fast and then delete it all, because like, we don't really need this. We just need to test that our product is going to work. And it's kind of a fun thing. I've not done a good, deduplication is awesome. You guys have done a great job of enhancing it in TrueNAS, well, ZFS in general, but it's also so niche. But the niches that use it love it. Like, it's, you either zero use it, shouldn't use it, or it's amazing. And this company is like, we couldn't do this without this, not at this speed.
Pretty much. It's either it's really fantastic or you should stay all the way away from it. And hey, maybe we'll have to come back. We'll do another little collab like this.
Yeah.
We'll do another TrueNAS deep dive, but drop some stuff in the chat. Like, what do you want to see Tom and I just absolutely geek out on for another hour and a half, talking about the in-depths of TrueNAS, or, ZFS stuff, special VDEVs, ARC, hey, do I actually need a log device? That's one we get all the time. Like, hey, I threw a log in mine. Why isn't my system getting faster? Tom and I can sit down, we can pull apart all this stuff for you. And
yes,
I'm sure we'll get lots and lots of commentary.
Yeah. And especially when the build guide, and I probably should do an updated build guide, because that's something where they'll waste money on the wrong thing. They'll buy a log device. I'm like, what are you using it for? And they're like, oh, just some SMB shares. I'm like, stop. Or I'm using it to stream my movies. I'm like, you definitely don't need it. Like, you are go spend money on RAM, go spend money on a video card for some transcoding. Those are things that are your money better placed than on a log drive. And I don't need one with my videos, because it's just large. All the stuff I record is just a bunch of large files. And by the way, I'm still editing on, let me pull this up real quick, because you'll get a kick out of it. It's funny because people have these assumptions that it wouldn't be able to do this. So I ingest 4K 60 and do my editing, and I'm a solo editor, so it's me editing it. Look at the box I'm using. So yes, the Mini R.
Mini R.
This thing's old. It is not fast. I have the rusty pools for my archive, and I got my flashy pools here. So that's why it's called flashy. But this operates at 10 gig and doesn't stutter. I'm pulling in the data and editing, and I have no problems at all on it. It's shocking how, and by the way, if you look at the VDEVs in here, we'll point that out. It's just a, let me go to topology. But just
RAID Z1 and a RAID Z2, right?
Yeah, RAID Z. Yep, and a RAID Z2 for the other one. That's it. Just dead simple.
You have the exact same configuration as I do on my Mini R.
Yeah,
you got the exact same setup.
And people are like going, but Tom, how can you possibly edit 4K video on this? I'm like, I could go to 8K. I just did the DaVinci Resolve speed test when I set up the new system, and it says I can edit 8K. So I mean, it's you don't need as much as you probably think for those aspects, but I will admit it's a terrible at transcoding stuff because that processor,
there's no quick sync on those atoms, unfortunately.
No, these processors. It also this is a non-encrypted cool because this processor does not do well for encryption. What GPU was this one? Oh, it's the Intel is the
3758.
Yep, 3758 Atom. That processor and its 8 cores and 8 threads are not wonderful for encrypted ones. But
it's got no QAT either is the problem. So
it's missing that, so it will stutter if it was encrypted, but I don't bother encrypting my videos. They end up on YouTube anyways. So if someone were I was like, what if they steal them, Tom? I'm like, will they upload them for me?
Yeah, exactly. Wow, you're using your bandwidth. That's fantastic.
Cool.
But drop it. Yeah, drop an A310 in there and it'll be a video transcode monster for sure.
Yeah. So I'll leave everyone with that. So thank you for joining. This was awesome, Chris. Awesome to all of you here. We had at our peak, we had about 180. We still got about 163 people here. So great to see all the community here. Join the TrueNAS forums. And when I let Chris go, he's going to be over here publishing on the T3 podcast. So if you need to hear more and dive deeper, and I'm looking forward to listen to it myself, to the whole smart thing, that's going to be among the topics they discuss when they get that released.
Yep.
So
jump on in there
and do that podcast.
All right. Yeah. He says he's going to watch it now. Well, it's going to be uploaded and ready in probably about 10 to 15 minutes. I got to try and get that uploaded, go for lunch. And then I got some other meetings coming up myself. So thanks for having me, Tom. Again, thank you everybody for tuning in, for all the great questions. We'll have to do that again sometime and, reach out to everybody here. And again, jump on the forums, DM me. You can find me at Honey Badger or, hey, send me a message, t3@truenas.com. We'll have a discussion. So
absolutely.
Thanks again.
All right. Take care, everyone.
Take care.